if you have cloud space.
Hello, hello. And today I have my special friend and co-podcast creator who helped me start it. And she's going to be a special guest. I love my friend and amazing coach, so powerful and so abundant, Coach Ralitza. Hey, Ralitza, how are
Thank
you
you,
today?
Jules. Thank you for having me yet again on your wonderful podcast. I'm so excited for you and everything that we've been talking about.
Yes. And today we're talking about something very special for both of us because we, just like all of you, my amazing, smart, brilliant listeners, we are the doers. We are the shakers. We make things happen. And what we've been learning and realizing in our life from being burnt out, stressed out, and all of those that we are definitely familiar with, what we've been realizing is that there is something else that we're missing to bring us to wholeness, to bring us to that abundant inner abundance from which we can create the overflow and share our brilliant gifts. And that is the other side of it, doing, which is being.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Renita, what do you want to share today about your journey from doing to being?
Oh, well, it's that this is the thing. For me, I think the journey is finding the balance between the doing and the being. And I always wear my necklace to remind me this infinity sign is such a beautiful reminder of you can't have one without the other. You can't just be doing all the time without being. And I think for me as a quote unquote successful woman, an entrepreneur, graduated medical school, started a business, went into teaching. I taught medical school and high school life science and GED. I had 4 jobs at the same time. If I can't see myself as successful, that's a problem. And I still put it in air quotes. So it's funny because I think we get so stuck in our doing, and a lot of that comes from our ego's attempt to prove itself. And when we show up in the world from that place of insecurity and from that place of actually a lack of abundance, truly, we don't feel fulfilled because we're not in that flow. We're not in the doing and the being. We're just stuck on one side and we're just doing. And then we don't get to enjoy the bliss of being in our doing. And so I think for me, the balance has been really embracing what being even looks like. What does it look like to embrace my feminine qualities of creatorship? What does it look like to honor my self care, prioritize myself? That has really embodied and embraced a lot of my being. Sitting in the bathtub, I've shared before on my podcast and a few other places and spaces. But when I first settled down after those 4 jobs in 2020, I remember sitting in the bathtub and I could not be with myself at all, not for more than 5 seconds. And it's interesting because now we're doing this 21-day meditation challenge with Deepak Chopra. And this is actually the challenge with Oprah and Deepak is what got me to slow down and actually settle into myself, settle into my being. So for me, it's a lot more of that balance. Without the doing, I'm not showing up in the world properly. But without the being, I'm also not showing up. So it's this understanding and sense of responsibility that there are both, and we must prioritize whatever's off balance so that we can create the balance. So for me, a lot of it was falling back into the being for time, learning what that looks like, correcting what that doesn't look like, putting a lot of energetic boundaries around people, places, and things that are no longer serving me. It became very clear to me as I settled into myself what serves me and what doesn't. And so yeah, definitely the balance and the flow of the being and the doing is, I think, to me, the accomplished sense of abundance that I feel now.
Yes, yes, because essentially what is abundance to me, it's that wholeness and wholeness where two parts, two opposites meet, and you actually look at disconnection from that abundant place when both can coexist. So from which you can create, because obviously when you are whole, you're much stronger than all your parts that are disconnected from the whole. Yes, there's just so many things that you said that I was trying to reflect on. First of all, yes, we just started that 21-day abundance challenge with Deepak Chopra. So yeah, we are making accountable each other, because just like even we are coaches, but we're humans too, and it's always fun to do it with someone else. And the
Absolutely.
beautiful thing is that I actually joined that 21 abundance challenge with Deepak years ago, and I actually purchased his CDs. And the other day, because I'm moving from one house to the other, I actually found a folder where he also provided the printouts for each day with
Wow.
everything. And it's like, okay. And of course, we had a conversation the other day how I am stressed out and doing too much, and I should be being, and I need some rest. And it's like, Ralitza says, okay, let's do 21 day meditation challenge. And I'm just like, how synchronistic is that? I just found that folder. I was reviewing it, how, brilliantly he says things, right?
Mhm.
And then the other, because we were moving, I actually took those CD to the half price bookstore, because, everything is online now, and I have those CDs and they're still good. It's like
Yes,
the universe is just making all this like circle. Okay,
that's right.
we're back to where we're supposed to be. And of course, in the morning, I woke up and my other laptop died. And it's like, all
Your
right.
working laptop, the one that's
Yeah, my
doing all the
working laptop.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has more memory, more capacity, more of everything. It's like reminds me, oh yeah, you think you have capacity and memory.
Yes.
We're gonna show it to you.
That's
It,
so funny.
but of course, like the previous me who was the doer, I would be so angry that
Yeah.
things not going my way, and I'm trying to accomplish 15,000 things, and I have a checklist and on my laptop, and I have to add another thing. I would be so angry and mad and frustrated. And here I'm just like, thank you.
Isn't that
Am I
funny? And
supposed to
that's
live today?
exactly, yeah. And that is exactly the gift of being able to fall back. To me, what I see is you saying, okay, I have this priority, but you're not honoring it. And the universe hears your priority and wants to receive and send you synchronicity to be able to honor that priority. And so what does it do? It stops your laptop from working. The working computer that you have is no longer functional, because why? You did not honor your intention of synchro destiny, the way Deepak says it, of what you're meant to be doing to become in flow state, to be able to receive fully from the universe, is that falling back and being. And it's like, okay, how many times do I have to show you through people, places, and things, all of the patterns that show up in our world, those moments of signs that we get to see? It's like, okay, fall back. Oh, you're human design. You need to fall back and rest. And you're like, I don't need rest. So the computer is like, okay, if you don't want rest, I'll make you rest. No more work. Like, that's it. So yeah, I love that your reflection to that and your response to that is, okay, I hear you, universe. Like, I get it. Thank you. And please make it work again when I'm done resting.
Yeah.
That's definitely happened to me before, where technology served me and I
Mhm.
had to see it as a gift, because if not, like you say, we'll get thrown off, we'll be angry. The whole rest of the day or week or whatever, all of our relationships suffer, everything suffers from that lack of awareness and that lack of recognizing that, oh, this is actually in integrity with my original intention.
Yes, exactly. And that's where I go back, because the difference is my concept of myself. Just that's what I call the self-worth compass. Back then it was set on lack and limitation, because the way I believed about myself, I wasn't lucky, I was not enough success for everybody else. And that's why when the laptop breaks and something else breaks and whatever else stays on the way, that only confirmed my belief, because I was already there. the compass was just basically like that energy of that compass, what I believe then was attracting the energy just to match, because I was the match for that. So, and as I've been doing my inner work and readjusting my compass, so now I look at it as a gift, and it's an abundant gift because, yes, essentially, we always co-create, and the energy matched to the energy that I was experiencing, which was tired and getting to that burnout and stress. And I was all self-imposed. I had really like no crazy deadlines to meet or anything like survival. And I knew I would want to have some rest. But except like doing sometimes does not get you to actually
Resting.
what you want to do or should be doing or feel energetically aligned with. So
Totally.
sometimes you just fall into your old habits, even though, yes, my self-identity compass is readjusted, but there's still more growth
Mm.
that I need to evolve through to really embrace my being and intentionally schedule my being.
And that's really funny because it's like we're trying to embrace and embody this feminine in a masculine structure still, which is like, how do we balance both? But it's really interesting. That's what it starts with. It starts with actually creating time for yourself in your schedule. And yes, putting it in a schedule is a very masculine, doing type of thing. But when you're creating space for yourself, it's like that's an invitation to not be in the doing. And soon you can stretch that space to not have a time limit. And soon you can stretch that schedule into not needing it to be scheduled, but actually knowing that falling back into that being is what serves, right? And will always serve. So when you get the chance, and the universe will continue to do this for you, in the moment that you feel exhausted, someone will cancel the next meeting, whether it's you or the other person. And if we don't have good boundary setting, the universe will do it for us. The person, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And this is where I feel like we have to take responsibility. So once we are spiritually tapped into our source, to our essence, to that destiny part of us, it's really important to take responsibility when we hear the message, because if we don't do our part, we will cause suffering for others, and we will project the things that we're not working onto others in our life. And that's where it becomes really important. And, we talk about this being a process and a journey, and it's not always easy. It's like when we start to spiritually bypass and think, oh, we're above all the things, we actually start to project all the things onto other people. And most people don't recognize that that's a thing. And so if you are to honor your boundaries and your energetic blueprint and really figuring out, when do I need rest? When am I really good at the doing? For women, that falls into our cycles, our menstrual cycles. And it has a lot to do with our hormonal balance. And it has to do a lot more with the moon, which is, where we go into astrology. And, most modern scientists and doctors will roll their eyes at this point, but you can't deny the truth of the human being and the human doing, and the fact that everything is energy and that everything is connected. And so when we get to these, ways of showing up that are just teeny tiny parts of our capacity, and when we show up in our limitation, as you were saying, it's like, that's the part that's draining. That's the part where we interrupt the flow. And so when we commit to the flow comes, and we have to recognize, and we have to take responsibility to do our part to honor that flow, and to honor our need for rest, and to honor our need for doing our deeper work sometimes, when we're triggered, when there's things that come up in our intimate relationships, for example, whether it's with our children or our partners or close friends of ours. It's like us being the ones that are conscious of our options, we can choose to do the work.
Yes. So would you be able to share with my audience, our audience here who are listening, what does flow look like to you when you're intentional about it? when you have that good image and you're following for a few days here and there before you fall off? What does it look like? What are you intentionally trying to create in the flow?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. It's an ever evolving journey to me. And so I think right now, well, let me say this. I am very trusting with the universe, God, Mother Nature, call it what you want to call it, but the greater thing that connects us all and that wants the best for us all. I am very much tapped into that. And I know and I trust when things happen in my world, I see them as signs. I don't just think, oh, that's just a coincidence that has nothing to do with my purpose, my calling, my dharma, whatever you want to define it as. So for me, being tapped into my essence and my purpose in the world, everything is synchronistic. From my 9 to 5 job, my corporate career, where I recently got a promotion because I finally accepted, thank you. I finally accepted and embraced that I'm not showing up authentically in this job because I feel like I need to keep them separate. It's like I keep my business over here and my corporate job over here. But what I noticed is I am the same person in both places. And if I can't show up authentically and marry both, it's like that yes and the love fear dialogue that we do, our essence and our ego. If we're not walking together, we're constantly fighting ourselves. And so I noticed that I was really pushing back and forth. And at one point I said, and it was about a LinkedIn profile. Like it was something so simple. I hired a team and they started reaching out to people on LinkedIn. And I thought, oh, this is a big mistake because my corporate career lives on LinkedIn. And I thought, I can't show my coaching things on LinkedIn because then what are they going to think of me? Right. But
Mm-hmm.
the truth is, I looked at it from the perspective of, well, if I'm really truly being authentic, whatever they do think of me actually doesn't matter because it's my calling and it's my dharma. It's my purpose in the world to share my message and my gift, and everybody needs to hear it. And if you don't like it, then maybe I don't belong here. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so I took this perspective of, if I'm going to show up whole and authentic and completely who I am, I need to do it in all the areas of my world. And that includes my corporate career. And so I think it's embracing that. It's really recognizing the signs. For example, that I was triggered, that my team reached out to someone who works at the same company. And I said, this is a major boundary. This is a conflict of interest. This cannot happen. But then I fell back and I thought about it and I was like, well, maybe this is actually a gift. Like, how is this serving me? So asking yourself from what happens in your world, because our life is just a reflection of what's going on internally, asking myself, how is this trying to serve me? And again, falling back into that, okay, this is happening for me. Life is happening for me. And I just have to fall back and look at the patterns and see how this is working for me. And so as soon as I was able to do that, similar to your laptop situation, it's like, okay, how is this actually trying to serve me? Oh, right. I have an intention of resting for you. I have an intention of showing up authentically in all the areas of my world for me. And so I couldn't fight against it anymore because I saw it. I was very aware of it. So the number one most important thing I think to me is becoming aware that everything happens for us and stopping this constant need to be in control. So to me, I have no control over what happens. And as soon as I've released the control, everything has flowed so synchronistically. A meeting is scheduled here, another one's canceled there. My son doesn't feel well. I have to go pick him up just on time. Everything is worked out because that meeting was canceled. And it's like all the things that I'm supposed to be doing, it's already happening for me. And I'm just here for it. I just showed up, right? And, how I show up is the most important thing, how I am claiming myself. Prioritizing the self-care, waking up earlier, doing my meditation, doing my yoga first thing in the morning. It's something I never used to do before. I thought, where am I going to find the time? But the truth is, the time is always there. It's what is your priority? When we make excuses, we're actually bypassing our capacity. We're bypassing the invitation to up level, to step up and step into what's possible. So I
Mhm.
stopped making excuses and I started scheduling the things that I know will serve me. Yoga, it doesn't matter what kind of yoga you do, will always serve you. Find the one that fits your essence, your body type, your physical limitations best. But all yoga has alternative ways of doing it that honor your body. That's the whole point. It gets you in a state of flow energetically in your physical body, in your mind. A lot of yoga has to do with mindfulness as well. And so, even just that, doing a 30-day yoga challenge or a 30-day meditation challenge. Something that I learned about meditation, I had a lot of resistance and excuses around meditation. Oh, I don't have time to meditate. Who has 20 minutes? In such a busy work life balance, like that schedule of, I have my corporate job, I have my business, I'm a single mom, I have all these things, so many excuses. But really, when I fell back into it and I said, well, wait a second, if meditation helps me to do all these things in more flow and balance and ease and abundance, then this should be the first thing that I do in the day, not the last thing. And so meditation can look like 3 minutes. My therapist, when I was first working with a therapist, she told me, you don't have to meditate for long. She's like, 3 minutes is more than enough time for you to meditate. And I thought, well, I can do anything for 3 minutes, right? So that's how it started, And so I think taking from my corporate career, we talk about quality improvement in healthcare, and we talk about starting with small changes. And I think if you're going to change anything in your life, it has to start small so that you can see the impact of it, so that it doesn't take a lot out of your capacity. You don't have to change everything. You change one little thing. And if we aim for that 1% change, which is in the Atomic Habits book by James Clear, if we aim for the 1% change, it actually has such a massive impact on all the other things in our world that we aim for 1, but it turns out being 10 because of how aligned it is with what we need to embrace and embody to create that flow. So it all always comes full circle.
Yeah. So if you go back to flow, what I hear you say, and correct me if I'm hearing well, is that you try intentionally allowing yourself to connect with yourself and perhaps what's important to you, because how do you prioritize, because you know what you want and what's important to you, what brings you joy. And also you've been mentioning your dharma, so because you know your calling, so that's why your company is called Authenticity Calling, so which I love. And yes, Ralitza is definitely living the talk that she talks about. But at the same time, it's the constant adjustment that's being in the flow. So that's why I don't like the word balance, because balance becomes 50-50, but it's impossible. But when you're in the flow, constantly adjusting and readjusting. To me, I see that as the ocean and the wave. Like you are a wave and you make many waves, but you go into the ocean to sort of like clear up, get the energy, get the message, reconnect, and you evolve through that connection, and you become this like fuller and more expansive wave, and you go again, do your thing, figuring things out, da, 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 da. And then you go back to this big ocean, kind of dip there, see like, okay, I'm on the path, what else is there? Like that energetic reconnection. That's how I see that wave in the ocean, and like essence and ego, right? Or the dance, effort and ease. So, and as you do that, you're staying connected to the flow, because yes, you as a person create the flow, but if you're connected to the ocean, you're a powerful flow. And that's what I hear you say.
Yeah.
Is that kind of on track so far before I
I
ask you?
love that. Yeah, I just want to make two comments about something that you said. And as you were reflecting that back, it became very clear to me that I think, to me, you said you know who you are and why you're here, but that hasn't always been the case. And so for me, being somebody who grew up being taught to seek external validation, I did not know. And I think that's actually why I externalized my flow in what's going on around me instead of trusting the inner voice, because we all have an inner voice, we all have that intuition. my whole life I've been rejecting my intuition because it didn't bring me closer to love, right? Because to me as a child, I would ask a question and I would receive a lie, right? Basically, it would be, oh, next time, or, whatever. Just tell the kid a little white lie so that we can just sweep it under the rug and move on with the day, right? And so what that created in me was a sense of, but my instinct says this, but you're telling me that. And if I tell you you're wrong, I won't receive your love and acceptance. So I have to then by default reject myself, reject my truth.
Yeah.
So it's actually been an evolution. It's been a lot of coaching, a lot of personal development work, a lot of sitting with my triggers, a lot of those things to come back to trusting myself. And it's an ever evolving journey. In moments where I intuitively know something, I have to talk myself off the ledge in the sense of, this might be true, but let's just fall back and trust that everything is happening for you. Even if this is true, it's happening for a reason, and you just let it go and allow it to happen. You're right, intuition. It's probably happening exactly the way you're saying, and there's no point in attaching to it. So we let it go. And as soon as we let it go, the next day you find out, oh, actually, it was happening exactly the way you thought. But was there a point in attaching to it? Was there a point in going into anxiety and fear and anger and all the things? It's like, no, it doesn't serve you to do that. So you fall back in trust, and then you deal with it from a place that's higher, that's elevated, rather than frustrated, irritated, and lower vibrationally, where you're not going to create that flow and that abundance and that balance. So I just want to say the knowing piece, it comes with time for me personally. And I think that's why I had to externalize it in seeing the patterns in my external world and trusting that instead of trusting myself. There are some people who haven't had that kind of upbringing where they're already very connected to their intuition and they can trust their inner voice. Now, I spoke with a client yesterday who has a very loud, strong inner voice. They're grounded in their human design. They're fully grounded. They're like the anchor. And this doesn't exist very common in the world. So what does this person do? This person goes into their mind. Okay, I know this, but what if this, like all the other alternatives? And it's like, that's the other double-edged sword of knowing internally, but then not actually trusting and acting on it, right? And so whatever that looks like for you, whether it's an internal knowing or an external looking at patterns and recognizing that life is happening for you and serving you, I think that's really important, just to recognize, where is your locus of awareness? We talk about locus of control. Where's your locus of awareness? Is it outside of you? Is it inside of you? And both are okay. But just recognizing, okay, if I don't recognize it inside of me, it's going to happen outside anyways. It's always going to serve me. So I just have to be more aware and recognize that that's what's happening, right? The other thing you said is about the balance, where balance has to be 50-50. And for me, I don't believe that. So it's the reason my business, my sign is a triangle, is because to me, that's the fulcrum. And we get to move that fulcrum based on what we're doing in our world that's out of balance. And so if you have the scale and you have a million things on this side and just one on this side, well, obviously we have to move the fulcrum closer to the side that's heavier. And so that's, to me, the balancing part is figuring out what we need to shift and change to create that balance. It's not always going to be 50-50, right? If I have a super packed, busy day, and the part of me is like, I just need rest. Well, I'm not going to cancel my whole day. I have to show up for my 9 to 5. And it's really changing the perspective of I have to versus I get to, right? This is a career that I've chosen intentionally because I know it's fulfilling my dharma. I know that I'm here to change healthcare from the inside out. I know that I'm meant to share my gifts with the people that I'm now sitting at the tables with, who are making the decisions of how are we going to execute this big healthcare change in our province. And the reason I have been able to be called to that table is because I fully embraced and embodied who I am in that balance. And again, it's a balance, and it depends where you're at today, where you're at in this moment, right? Balancing, how am I showing up? But knowing that I'm showing up in my career as someone who is meant to share my gifts. And that's the other part of the meditation. Day one of the abundance challenge is recognizing that yes, it's showing up. Yes, it's embracing the being and the doing, but it's also sharing our gifts. And that's the first part of my mastermind, is knowing thyself, knowing thy real self, because a lot of us don't know ourselves. if you ask 100%, if you ask 100 people, what do you want? Most people have no idea. Or who are you? Our identity is so tied up in what we do in our job, what kind of, what kind of relationships we have. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a so-and-so. And so little of it is tied to really what is our purpose in life? What's our dharma? Why are we here? What are we doing? How are we showing up? How are we sharing our gift? What is the unique thing about you that makes you you? And it's not your job. Yes, you share your gift in your job, but your job is not your identity. It's not the fact that you're a mother and a daughter and a sister and all the things. Yes, that is the way you show up, but what do you contribute to those roles that's uniquely from you, that is a gift to the other people in your world? It goes back to ikigai, right? The Japanese principle of your reason for being, right? It always comes back to that. So when we talk about purpose and dharma and abundance, we do have to prioritize ourselves. And that is part of creating the balance. And so if you're constantly externalizing your value and you're showing up in your work and you're pushing hard and you're doing, and you have 20 meetings in a day, it's like, well, maybe that's the invitation to not schedule 20 meetings in a day. Maybe they should only be 5. Maybe we should space them out, right? Like you said, you create this sense of urgency when it doesn't actually have to be there. And where is that created? It's created from that ego wanting to prove itself. And so in that moment, the invitation is, how am I showing up in the world, pushing hard, feeling like things are not happening enough? And how can I then fall back and create more space? Because space is not going to be created for you until you claim it, right? Falling back, being in our being, making time for ourselves. That's not just going to magically happen until we commit to our dharma, until we commit to our purpose. And then we start to create the flow. And again, that 1% change is you have to choose. You have to be very consciously choosing to create the balance. And that might be where the fulcrum lies. It's like, oh, okay, let me cancel this meeting that's not necessary for this week. Let me move it to next week. Having those energetic boundaries is where we start. So knowing thyself, energetic boundaries, and then, moving into inviting the flow. But it has to start somewhere. So those are just 2 things that stood out. So the knowing and the balance. It doesn't have to be 50-50. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you for sharing. Yes, and I think we are having the same perspective, just like different images, and that's the power of abundance, and also seeing things, even though they're similar concepts, but how we see them and how we communicate about them is very different. So that's why when I hear nowadays, I don't react so much, but when I hear, well, like, but coaches, there are so many of them, it's overflow, it's everywhere. Yeah, however, how I talk about it is very unique and different to me, as long as I am in that authentic self and afraid to be different and talk about differently, just like you said. So that's why, to me, like, the balance that I'm referring to is the flow. And it's fluid because we are fluid. That's why I like the word calibrating what is, and calibrating to who I'm choosing to be. You're never, because like when I work with women who have tendencies for perfectionism and all or nothing and right and wrong and all of that, that balance becomes like a paralysis. Well, am I doing it right? Is it enough? Is it enough? No, that's why when we are going into the trusting and then the flow of that, like you have, like you talk about, like you want to actually rely more on trust, because actually in life, everything is fluid and flow. And you actually creating your flow, like you are the dancer, calibrator of your calibrated flow day to day. That's why in my head, I kind of visualize that as like dots, 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 kind of like those, stars in the sky. When you see them, they're just dot, 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 and then they shape something that is this star, and then dot, 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 and you shape something that is a dot.
Yeah.
But yes, I definitely agree. So that it starts with you connecting with your authentic self. And then from that, that's where I think the growth starts. That's where we want support. That's where we want
Mhm.
coaching, just to
Mhm.
kind of speed up and just have somebody there to brainstorm your ideas, so to speak.
Mhm.
Because when you start going within for your inner abundance,
Mhm.
it feels unfamiliar. It feels scary. It feels uncertain, because if my identity for 50 years was attached to everything external,
Mhm.
and now you're telling me to find myself, and I
Mhm.
have to go inside and
Yeah.
trust my intuition and
Yeah.
actually connect with my body so I can
Yeah.
actually feel and hear. And it's like, I never even paid attention to my emotions, and I was pushing them away. And now you're telling me like my feelings is my GPS to like find out who I am. What?
Yeah.
You crazy?
Totally. It's a
I'm
completely
I'm
foreign
just gonna go
concept.
do my checklist. Check, check, check. Here's the physical proof. It's done. I'm accomplished. I'm fulfilled. I'm somebody.
Yes.
It feels
Yes.
familiar. It feels certain. It feels awesome. And it's done in a day. Boom, ready to go. But again, how do we know that we look successful on outside,
Yeah.
but we struggle inside? It's because we do start paying attention to our body. And usually for many women that I work, it's usually starts going to really pay attention loudly, because it's not just feelings and emotions anymore. It like goes into pains and aches.
Yeah.
It's suddenly like, oh, that doesn't feel good. What's wrong? Blah, blah.
That's right.
This is kind of like that moment starts, but where it starts from within, and the body is the communicator, and body communicates through sensations, feelings, and emotions. And of
Yeah.
course, when we are high achievers, we don't have that system working with us and for us. We don't even
Mhm.
pay attention.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you touched on so many important points that our emotions are our GPS. I used to be an emotional ninja. I mean, naturally in medicine, you can't always honor your emotions in the moment. You have to hold that, that front for patients that are actually the priority, be strong for them, be the rock. And at the same time, I always kind of look back and question, isn't that sense of humanity actually giving permission for people to feel what they feel? When I'm upset about a patient passing, I can't even imagine what's going on for the family. But for me to look like a rock, is that serving me and them, or is it really not? And so, yeah, I've played with that myself, is the way that we're trained and taught in medicine to show up emotionless and like rocks. And, then we have to take all of that home and actually work it. And so it's interesting. It's interesting because I think we do a lot of emotional bypassing in order to get the checklist done, like you say. And then at the same time, the more we do it, the more that energy gets trapped inside of us. And as you say, manifests into potentially disease. It's dis-ease. If it's easeful, you don't have this collection of energy that hasn't been addressed. It's like, if we are really mindful and aware, oh, there's a resistance here, right? And it's like, I'm going about my day, I'm doing my thing, but then I'm triggered by something or someone, right? And then it's like, okay, I put that on the back burner, I'll deal with you later, I have to get through my to-do list. But it's being very intentional and conscious and prioritizing, let me go back to that thing today, not next year when it becomes a disease where I have to deal with it, with medicine and, possibly hospitalization and all these things. If we become aware that our little resistances are just signs for our internal compass, as you say, wanting our attention, being intentional to go back. And that's where meditation comes in, because we become still. We come back into ourselves. We're able to allow those things to come up and be addressed, right? Without actually having to necessarily engage in them and do something, again, with the doing and the being, becoming aware of the gifts of our everyday experience, that is acknowledging it. That is learning from it. You don't have to change anything. And I think that's where a lot of people have resistance. Oh, I have to change my whole world. Well, no, not necessarily. Your world will naturally change for you as you prioritize yourself. And it's never going to be for the bad. It's always going to be for the greatest good of all concerned. Because if you're really being authentic and if you're really tapping into your truth, you can't create disharmony in truth. The only place that disharmony gets created is in a lack of truth, when we're not committed to the truth, when we choose to bypass our truth to maintain people's safety. We call it safety, but that's total BS. Like, you're not creating safety for people if you're not in your truth, right? Because people have intuitions. They know you're not being authentic. And so that creates a level of distrust. And so it's like inauthenticity, no trust. It's just a foundation that's cracked on all levels. And there's no point. There's just no point in showing up in the world in a way that you cannot be true to who you are and what you believe in and honor your values. That's not going to serve everybody else.
Exactly.
True, maybe some people will fall out of your life because you're not on the same wavelength anymore, because they're choosing to maintain lies and you're choosing to maintain truth. That can happen, yes, but it's still going to serve them, because as they recognize you rising as you honor your truth, they're going to be like, oh, what changed in that person? Oh, right, they honored their truth. And that's an invitation for them to do the same. And we can choose to stay stuck, but that's a very conscious choice. And we have to see it that way. Nobody is actually stuck because they're a victim. You're stuck because you're choosing to be stuck. And that empowers you to choose something else. And so that's the difference between, predetermined destiny. People talk about predetermined destiny. Oh, it doesn't matter what I do. I'm going to end up where I'm meant to be. It's like, well, not really. It's like this matrix that's collapsed in the X, the Y, the Z, and all these different dimensions of potentiality, as you say. So we have one path that is predetermined if we choose to do things in option A. But then there's also option B and C and D and E and F and, the whole alphabet. And then we get into Roman numerals and we get into all the different things. But that's the human capacity. The human capacity is having a choice of how we show up, and that will determine the predetermined option that you choose. It's like, yeah, if you choose to show up as somebody who prefers to lie so that you can, accomplish whatever you think you're accomplishing by lying, then you have one predetermined destiny. And the energetic blueprint of that will affect everybody in your world. But if you choose to show up in your truth, what you know is most true for you in the moment, and genuine and authentic and honoring all the triggers, all the boundaries, all the things, then that creates a different energetic blueprint. And that's the blueprint of abundance. That's the blueprint where everybody gets to thrive in your world. And those that are choosing not to, well, they'll fall off, and that's okay too, right? But knowing that this or something better for the greatest good of all concerned. And for people who are starting, I recommend you say this regularly, because it gives you that full permission. This or something better for the greatest good of all concerned. And then you get to fall back and just trust, because that's not an easy process. And I'll have to say, like, the trusting piece, it's a work in progress for, I think, a lot of us.
Yes. Well, and essentially, in order for connecting with your truth, this is what you want to have. Because how do you know that this is your truth? It's because you're trusting to own it, and you're trusting to claim it as your truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then you get rewarded. But that's how you know it's your truth. You get rewarded, because the universe will
But
then
I
say,
feel like
oh,
it's not really about reward. I think reward itself, you owning, recognizing, feel it, experience, and embody, that's it. That's like more than a reward. And then you show up from that state of being. That's the energy you're matched up to. But I believe where it's all coming from, because most of us operate from ego, and ego operates from fear, and we have a lot of conditions. And sometimes I feel that we bring that college or school, or like testing, examination into life, because there is a right answer and there is a wrong answer.
yes.
There is multiple choice, but they give you all the choices, and you still have the right choice. And I think that's how a lot of us that we identify with being perfectionist, right? Those women who are also brilliant and high achievers and fantastic at doing, but with a tendency of perfectionism, we just get paralyzed. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I doing good? Am I doing bad? And it becomes that ego language looking for the right answer. But again, what it's looking for is to really bring to that center,
Mm,
and embrace it all, because you're not good and bad, you're
mm.
both.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? Perfectionism, I heard perfectionism is the highest level of self-rejection. As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh,
Yes.
right. Let's sit with
Oh,
that for a
yeah.
minute.
And it's something that you did say. Anyway, so I think the power lies not in that college testing approach to life.
Mm,
And that's why it actually develops other parts of ourselves that brings us more to wholeness, which do rely on something that is not tangible, like, yeah, trust and
mm,
faith and intuition. So, and that becomes that journey, because more we wave towards that direction,
mhm,
or we start coming back and owning our truth, because it's
mhm.
already there. And most of us kind of feel it and know. It's just that we don't take that next step to own it,
That's it.
claim it, declare, embody, and bring it forward. Because that's where the scary part, this is where the scary path is. That's why we are passionate about our coaching, who we coach, to help them. Like, oh, okay, so you feel it? Let me hold your hand. Let's go together.
Yes. Yes.
That's the beautiful transition. And then something that you did say about this ease, and I just had this revelation. Oh, this is like, truthfully, it's a lack of ease in your life.
Yes. That's it. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, what do we have when we identify with that type A, perfectionist, high achiever?
That's it.
That's exactly it. We create success, but it's all at the lack of ease and joy.
That's right. And that's why a lot of people who are high achievers will end up with some kind of chronic condition.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
crazy. Even the language represents a state of being and the energy. That's why I know when I'm embodied, that who I'm declaring to be. And I even wrote my own personal manifesto. And now I'm doing that with all my clients when we get to that point. Like, choose who you want to be. Like, that was past. So we've done the work there, we did some
Mhm.
forgiveness. And that's the
Mhm.
thing, your past does not have to create your future, because I exercise the power of personal creation. And just like you talked about, the personal responsibility and personal choice. And then from that, you create who you want to be. And then with that, you calibrate your efforts, your thoughts, your beliefs with that person.
That's it.
When I am there, my language changes and
That's
represents that. So like now I'm very intentional. So if I'm writing the email or something, I go into the language like, okay, how can I speak them into the existence who I
mm,
want them to be, and see their
mm,
power?
beautiful.
Yeah. And as
That's
soon
it.
as I ask that, I'm empowered. I
Yeah,
believe. I
that's
just
it.
like, I find the words and I write my sentences. I'm like, when this
That's it.
is
So
on the
that,
other side,
yes, that is the
yeah.
responsibility of every single coach. But I also want to highlight, if we don't see every single person that way, we're doing them a disservice as well. Even as anybody that's listening to this, if you don't see your partner in that light, in their full capacity, you're not supporting their growth and evolution. You're not supporting them in their highest power. We're here to remind each other. Yes, as coaches, we get paid for what we do. We're very good at what we do in terms of seeing the patterns, calling people forward to their alignment, holding their hand till they create that for themselves. But even as humans, we have the duty to see each other in our essence, not in our limitation, because that comes from our fear, and we project that fear onto others. And then we see them as small, and then we expect small things from them, and they commit to those small things. And that's how we create disease in our society. And this dis-ease, it's not something I came up with, it's something I read somewhere somehow. But this weekend at Deepak's conference, he talked about how can we reverse aging, and it's exactly that. Disease happens because we have low grade chronic inflammation. How is that created? Stress, not
Yeah.
sleeping enough, not eating good food, having toxic people and relationships in our world, right? All of those things contribute to the dis-ease.
Yeah. And then we go and find the answers outside again, instead of again finding that ease. Like, where am I not flowing with ease? And what can I do? Yeah, this is powerful. You just like inspired me for for doing what I'm doing. And
Awesome.
with the woman, bringing them to that level of ease and joy so they become even more powerful. And that's what I call that inner abundance. Like when you connect with your inner abundance, you come from the state of overflow. So that's how I see boundaries. Like I have women and they say like, well, help me set the boundaries. And I always tell them like, okay, what they're reflecting back to you is that you don't hold your own boundaries with yourself.
Yes. Yeah,
So when we do that with you, you don't need to set boundaries with anyone else. I
that's
promise.
it.
And they
That's
just
it.
get so, oh, like, what? It's me? No, no, no,
Yeah.
it's them doing. No, no, no. So because let's see, like, what is it teaching you? It's that you want spaciousness and you're trying to demand from this person because they don't give you space. Well, guess what? When was the last time you scheduled your own spaciousness, right?
That's it.
Never. Well, because you're doing, you have so much to do.
Yes, we're committed to our suffering. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And they just get blown away. But when we do the work, when they commit, they just come to me. It's like, guess what? Yeah, now I'm setting my meditations. Now I'm having, walking in the park. Now I'm making my food. I'm scheduling time with my friend, and everybody else is fine.
yes, exactly. Our external world will mirror our internal world. You will see the peace and flow when you create it for yourself. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just magic. So I guess, yes, I love talking to you, and we've touched like on so many topics. We can like
So
make a
juicy.
separate podcast. But as you know, we also do our own flow and fluid motion, juggling things and staying true to ourselves and in abundance. So let's maybe just leave this amazing abundant episode with one tip that you may want to share with our audience that they can start with that may feel like easy flow into the world of finding who they are and rediscovering and perhaps reaching out to one of us and or finding their coach who can help them get there. What would be your tip?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So I really love to start my clients with the alignment inquiry, and it's on my website. It's totally free. You can email me, message me, anything that you sign up for on the website, it'll automatically send it to you. To me, the alignment inquiry is really important because it gets us to actually look at how we're showing up in our world in 12 different areas and rate from a scale of 0 to 10 where we're at in our fulfillment of those areas. So, for example, career, right? Maybe I see myself in my career, and a lot of it is a feeling, right? How fulfilled do I feel? Like you say, go back to the emotions, go back to your inner knowing. And so it's trusting our inner knowing of, well, I feel on the external, it looks really good, but I feel like I'm at a 6 or 7. It's like, okay, it looks good on the outside, but what's missing for you? And it's like, well, which of the values are you not honoring that are your core values? And maybe authenticity is not there because you feel like you have to be professional in your career, right? So that's just one example. But to me, dialing in what's true for us, it can be really challenging for people because we don't often ask ourselves, what's true for me? We ask ourselves, what's the checklist I'm here to accomplish, right? And so I think to me, that's one of the most important things. Even as you're going along in your day and you're doing things, being in your doing, asking yourself, how fulfilled am I in this doing? And what small shift can I make to become more fulfilled, to become closer to my truth? It can be simple, it can be small. It doesn't have to be this big, to-do list again, the alignment inquiry, but it is one way to call you forward in the different areas. So I would say if there's one simple thing you can do, it's question. Question, where are you at in your fulfillment? Is this really true for you, or are you doing it for other people? Is that externalizing your value, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is something simple we can do. It's going to lead down to a rabbit hole. If you need support, we're here. There are many, many coaches, and you will find the one that's most aligned for you. Just trust that the energy that comes when you speak to a coach, most coaches have free either discovery sessions or clarity calls, or they'll offer something to see what it feels like to be working together. To me, it's really trusting that energy that comes when you come together. When you come together with someone that's aligned, it should feel elevating. It should feel like full permission. You should feel like, this is the first time I'm hearing this, but it's so true. I want more. You'll know when you find the right coach, you'll know.
Yeah, awesome. So AuthenticityCallingMD.com, right?
AuthenticityMD.com. Yeah.
Yes, and it's going to be in the episode links. So yes, take that quiz, of course. And from my perspective, I would suggest this simple tip, except that it's not simple for women who are perfectionists and high achievers, because that's how I test them. So if they come for my possibility call or when we work together, I ask them simple question. Okay, what can we celebrate about you? Their face changes, their everything changes. And of course, the first answer comes out, well, no, I usually don't do it. Like, it's not about me, really. I don't know. What am I supposed to celebrate about me? And they just have all this inner dialogue going, and I'm just watching and writing down, because that already tells me a lot. Like, I can have a 6-month package just based on how they're going to answer this question. So
Absolutely.
and then, of course, that we create a ritual, and essentially they train themselves as they connect again with who they are more and more. That becomes more of who they are. Because, of course, if you celebrate your wins and your efforts, you are focusing on what already is going well, on what you're already doing enough.
Yes.
It's what you're looking for other people, exactly the same. You start noticing what they're doing enough, what they're doing well, and all the other little tips and paths that go with that. So I invite you, our beautiful audience, to try, maybe today, maybe for a week, and just start noticing, like, what is it that you're actually already doing so amazingly well? And the only thing that is missing, you recognizing it, embracing it, embodying it, and maybe create a ritual of celebration. And it doesn't have to be like opening a bottle of wine or inviting friends. It might be just like, good jobs, Jules. Or I call it wow. Like, wow, Jules.
Good. I love that. Yes, appreciation appreciates. It grows, and that energy of abundance grows when we celebrate our gifts. And that's exactly it. It's so beautiful. And look at how it came full circle. I just love I love what you
Yeah,
do and how you do it, Jules. It's so
yeah,
beautiful.
that's
Thank you
beautiful.
for
Okay,
sharing.
Ralitza, what shall we celebrate about you? Let's finish with that.
Showing up. Yeah, showing up for all the things, like doing all the things and just trusting. That's it.
Yes, that's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And yes, I'm celebrating my appreciation for the universe and how it sends me signs. And yeah, that's also trusting. Trusting is
Trusting.
exactly is exactly what I'm growing to have more of and rely on more of. So, and I appreciate you to be my friend, coach, and 911 friend, so to speak.
I appreciate you so much. Yes. Oh, and my day
Yes.
has started so well today. So thank you so much for that. You are such a gift in the world, Jules.
And you are a gift as well. And you, a beautiful audience, you are a gift. And this is just for you to discover that. Bye.
Bye.